Welcome to the Two Chicks Talk Writing Podcast with your host, Isabella, and new host, Jazzy Mitchell. This episode, we talk all things publishing with Jazzy. So without further ado, let's launch this baby.
So what's been the difference between being a writer and being a publisher? What's been your biggest surprise?
There are many ways that it is different. For one thing, I've seen behind the big curtain. So I know the entire process now from acceptance of a manuscript through having it released, and then the promotion that occurs after it, and then how much money comes in for that, how much you're making off of each unit. Didn't really know much of that before I became a publisher. I mean, I'd heard about it to some extent, gone to some panels and listened to the step-by-steps, but you know what? It doesn't make a difference until you're actually doing it, and then you really see what's going on, why it takes so long. I never used to understand, why would it take 5 months to publish it once I submit the manuscript? What's the problem? Now I'm like, 5 months is really fast. So right. It really is. And, it's just so much behind the scenes with the editing and the proofreading and the formatting and the uploading to different platforms and cover artists. And I think the biggest difference has been dealing with the different personalities.
So you've seen behind the curtain.
Oh, yes, I certainly have.
So they say, I've given it to you, you do all this now. I don't need to do anything else.
Right. And some authors, they're saying, well, you're my publisher. Why aren't you getting it sold for me? Why aren't you getting all these, why isn't it selling? If it's only selling 50 units in 1 quarter, that's your fault, not mine. And I'm like, no, it's really not my fault.
I think one of the hardest things sometimes to tell authors is that even big publishing houses are cutting their advertising budgets for B-list authors. You're not one of those top echelon authors who bring in lots of money. Your publishing budget for your book is almost non-existent. In fact, I've talked to a couple of people who do have mainstream contract who've said that a acquisition editor might make is, so what's your footprint on social media? What are you going to do to sell this book? They're expecting the author to take that on. And, I always tell authors, the reason we do our royalty structure the way we do is because we have as much skin in the game as you do. We're out $2,000+ before that book ever sees the light of day. That's money that we've paid out to get your book out there. And I'm often surprised that they don't know that.
And that's another thing that was surprising to me, how few paperbacks actually sell. The vast majority of sales are ebooks nowadays and audiobooks if you're offering that. Yeah.
There's a cost for a paperback. I mean, we've got I don't know about you guys, but we have our book designer and our cover designer and a flat for a paperback is different than a cover for the ebook, yes. and ISBNs. And I think there's a lot that goes into this that authors don't really realize sometimes. Publishers aren't the enemy. We're there to help them because if an author makes money, that means we make money.
Yeah, there are a lot of costs. I actually had a conversation like this recently with an author who decided she wanted to go elsewhere with one of her series because she felt like she could do better. And I said, well, you should have been doing all of these things while you were with us and not thinking you're going to do them in the future. And good luck to you because you're not going to sell more. And if you prove me wrong, I'd like to see how you do.
Most of the time, a lot of our books are barely making their back end, what I call the back end.
Yeah, I mean, some of my contracts, we have a tier system so that we do make back that money that we put out at the front. And they don't really understand that. And I know some authors, they prefer to pay their own editor. Some even pay their own cover artist and then bring it in. And I'm like, great. We don't have those fun costs we have to deal with. Funny because I had a conversation about this with one of the authors and she wanted to have an editor do it and then just have me publish it. And I said, no way. I still need to look through it. I still need to make, send it out to proofreaders. I need to make sure there's no big gaps. I don't care how well respected this editor is. I don't know this editor. I didn't hire this editor.
Right.
And we still need to go through it and go through the process. It might be abbreviated because it's in good shape when it comes in. And as for the covers, again, it usually, I still have last say whether or not I'm going to publish that cover. If they want to pay for a cover artist, that's fine. But I still need to approve it.
So how has being the publisher affected Jazzy the writer?
I haven't publish a new book in 2 years, or 2.5 years. So I guess that's the biggest one right there. I've still been doing my own promotions, using the platforms, going to cons, things like that. But I think that's probably the biggest change. I just haven't had the opportunity to sit down and write. I think I've written half of a sequel to You Matter, and I really want to finish it. On the positive side, I've learned a lot more. I know more what works, what doesn't work. And I think that's just going through all of these manuscripts that I receive from my authors and new submissions. So I've gotten a lot better at synthesizing the manuscripts and seeing what works and what doesn't work.
Okay. Wow. So when can we expect to see a new book from Jazzy Mitchell?
Well, if not this year, definitely by 2026. I'd say 2025. I don't want to break my promise. I need to be realistic. So we'll say 2026, we'll get that sequel out chapters ago. So.
Well, thanks, Jazzy, for taking all of my questions and helping all of our listeners find out more about you and Lunchpoint Press. For everybody out there, please stay tuned for the next edition of Two Chicks Talk Writing.
Thanks for listening to the Two Chicks Talk Writing podcast with your hosts, Isabella, and new host, Jazzy Mitchell. Join us next week as we talk all things writing.